As the US chases an unprecedented third straight World Cup title, a new generation of stars will lead the way. For as graceful and agile as she is on the pitch, Nelly Girma is surprisingly clumsy as she grips the foreign object she's just been handed. She turns it over in her palms and stares at it. "So I just roll it and go?" she asked uncertainly. Forward Sophia Smith grabs it and tries to help. "You have to scroll it," she says, pointing. A crowd gathers as Girma continues to struggle. "She was born in the 2000s, someone says. Finally, USWNT's national team content manager MC Barrett, who was born in the 1990s and whose fault is that they're having this conversation in the first place, steps in. "You turn it," she explains. "See how you're on 27, then you hit it, and once you take a picture, you crank it, and it drops." Girma, 22, laughs. She is the future of the USWNT's defense, but the anticipatory skills that usually help her on the field don't quite seem to translate. "You picked the wrong girlie," she says. In Barrett's defense, it's hard to find anyone who knows how to use a disposable camera on a team as young as this one. There has been a lot to document already as the USWNT charges, and sometimes limps, toward this summer's World Cup, where it hopes to capture its third straight title and fifth overall. This quadrennial has been marked by a changeover in coaching from Jill Ellis to Vlatko Andonovski, a pandemic, a bronze medal at the rescheduled Tokyo Games, only the second time the squad failed to make the Olympic title game, the retirement of forward Carla Lloyd, a fixture since 2005, a series of firings and resignations as National Women's Soccer League coaches and executives receive punishment for either perpetrating or mishandling alleged abusive misconduct, a settlement in the lawsuit players filed against U.S. Soccer demanding equal pay, and a flood of injuries that have left the U.S. short-footed. And the faces have changed. At least half of the players set to travel to Australia and New Zealand will be making their World Cup debuts. Many will have 30 or fewer caps. The next generation of the USWNT is here. When the team entered its 2 April friendlies against Ireland, the second and third to last matches before the World Cup, it was already working around several key absences. Defender Abby Dahlkemper, back. Midfielders Katarina Macario, torn ACL, and Sam Mewis, 2 knee surgeries, and forwards Toppin Heath, knee surgery, Kristen Press, torn ACL, and Megan Rapinoe, calf, were all out. Midfielder Julie Ertz, parental leave, and defenders Casey Kruger, parental leave, and Tierna Davidson, torn ACL, were making their 2023 national team debuts. The result had been uneven to that point. Last fall, the Americans lost 3 straight games for the first time since 1993 and snapped a 71-game home unbeaten streak that spanned more than 5 years. But they swept the 3-game Chamblives Cup in February, playing against teams Japan, Brazil, and Canada, with very different styles. And as the patchwork roster started to gel, coaches and players alike began to grow more and more excited. They were buzzing about one player in particular, Mallory Swanson. Swanson became the youngest senior national teamer in a decade and a half when she debuted at 17 in 2016. 7 months later in Rio, she became the youngest player ever to score an Olympic gold for the US in 19. She was the second youngest player on the World Cup roster. But beset by injuries and facing adversity for the first time in her career, she began playing inconsistently and did not make the roster for the Tokyo Olympics. Rather than feeling slighted, Swanson accepted this setback as a challenge. She increased her level of intensity on the field and began working with a sports psychologist off it. She had spent most of her career as a kid surrounded by grown-ups, but now coaches began to rely on her both as a player and as a leader. By April 2023, Swanson had become the player everyone knew she could be. She scored in 6 straight USWNT games, including 7 goals in the first 5 games of the year, matching her career high for a season. At 25 years old, Swanson was reaching a turning point in her international game, becoming a true leader on a squad of even younger stars, all at the perfect moment ahead of the World Cup. But in Austin, 40 minutes into the first April friendly against Ireland, Swanson took a pass and sustained a hard tackle from Irish defender Oif Mannion. She yelped in pain and remained crumpled on the grass as trainers tended to her and a sellout crowd of 20,593 at Q2 Stadium chanted her name. As she was stretchered off, she lifted her hands in the shape of a heart. The team announced the next day that she had torn her left patellar tendon. 2 days later, she underwent successful surgery, but with a recovery timeline that typically takes 6 months, barring a scientific miracle, Swanson will watch the World Cup from her Chicago home. Her absence changes the dynamic on and off the pitch. Swanson was the player most likely to embarrass opposing defenders. She was also the player most likely to send her teammates into gibbles by tripping over her own feet. Andonovski, who is 49 to 5'6" since taking over as coach in October 2019 had planned to build the team around Swanson on the left wing and Smith on the right. Now he will have to reshuffle his attack often on the fly, but the US system is designed to slot in ever younger players to a structure strong enough to incorporate them. We all understand that we have a job to do, Andonovski said before the second friendly against Ireland. While there is no replacing Swanson, who would have had a chance to win the Golden Boot in Australia, the US options at forward border on absurdity. We have so many different weapons to use, midfielder Rose Lavelle said 2 days before Swanson went down. I laugh sometimes because I'm like, if you sub Swanson out now, you have forward Trinity Rodman coming in. Or you sub Trinity out, just the depth that we have, especially with the young group, is incredible. Smith, the 22-year-old reigning U.S. Soccer Player of the Year and NWSL MVP, led the national team with 11 goals in 2022 and is playing at a similar pace with the Portland Thorns so far this season. Rodman, who came on as Swanson's substitute immediately after the injury, is also on the rise. The 21-year-old has seen an increased role with the national team this year, having already surpassed her minutes played in all of 22. And they are not even Andonovski's youngest options at forward. After Swanson's tendon snapped, the team immediately initiated the protocol for replacing an injured player and had 18-year-old forward Alyssa Thompson join the team in Street Louis for the second friendly. Thompson, a high school senior, was at practice for Angel City FC when she got the news, so she asked her mom to begin packing her bags and raced for the airport. The day before that game, the coach praised the one pick of the 2023 draft for her ability to break down compact defenses, eliminate opponents on the dribble, and run at defenses with confidence. Borderline arrogance, he said happily. In other words, they honored Swanson the only way they could. They moved on. At the national team Sports Illustrated photo shoot in Austin, Girma, Smith, Lavelle, and Alex Morgan capture their own shots. Leadership is key for this group as it's a process rather than a one-time decision. The lines between a leader and a rising star can be difficult to draw, but the team's players are all open and trying to learn. The team's structure is a good balance of veterans who bring established leadership and young players who joke around with them. Coach Andonovski, who coached for the Kansas City and Seattle NWSL teams from 2013 to 19, believes the national team was not set up for helping young players during the last World Cup. The coaching style allows for player development, and staffers prepare young players logistically for their experiences in Australia and New Zealand. The veterans teach the younger players various skills, such as resting during tournaments, choosing endorsement deals, and being creative on the pitch. They also teach the veterans something, balancing the older players' teachings with pushing them to continue advancing their own game. The younger players are game changers with unstoppable abilities and the ability to win on their own. The team's competitive nature is passed down from generation to generation, and the younger players believe they are cut out for high-level competition. Lloyd summed it up neatly in her last speech to the team before retiring, stating that you're either cut out for this or you're not. The younger players will have to prove it this summer with a dynasty on the line. That's it for today's video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this one. Thanks for watching.